Now, this particular ayah has produced numerous interpretations on the part of the Islamic people. There's some reasons for that. Think about it. What Jewish person, this is supposed to be a boast on the part of the Jews, what Jewish person would ever call Jesus Messiah? The term Messiah is used right there in the text.
Right.
They're identified by denying that Jesus was, in fact, the Messiah, and yet they use this type of terminology. I don't think that's determinative, but it does strike me as very odd that these words would be placed in the mouths of the Jewish people. What does "it was made to appear to them"? Shubiha aleihim. What does that mean? Appear to whom? As I understand the grammar of the Arabic text, the only antecedent are the people who were boasting.
Yes.
So what does it mean to say that it appeared to them? Does that mean that it only appeared to the Jews that they had crucified Jesus? What about the Romans? What about the disciples of Jesus? One thing's for certain from the historical evidence, you can't give us any evidence of anybody who claimed to be a follower of Jesus who didn't believe that Jesus was crucified. So who is this? What does it mean to appear to them? What does that mean? And why is it that so many Muslims take the idea that this says the idea of substitution, that someone was substituted for Jesus, in the sense of he was made to appear to them as if he was Jesus, whether it was Simon the Cyrene or Judas Iscariot or whoever it might be. Various theories have been presented. But are you sure that's what that Arabic phrase means? Shubiha aleihim? What does that mean? I thought this was supposed to be a mubinun text, supposed to be clear. It in itself talks about people have no sure knowledge, yet I would submit to you, there's no Muslim that has sure knowledge of what this text is actually saying.
Right.
That's the important part. And as I said, Surah 355 and 1933 both speak of Jesus' death as long as you translate them correctly.
Yes.
Surah 1933 is parallel to Surah 1915, where the words are applied to John the Baptist, who surely died, because if you recall, John the Baptist was beheaded. And you can argue about whether someone can survive crucifixion, but let me guarantee you something. No one has ever survived beheading. That is the most sure way to make sure someone is dead. And so the exact same language is used of John the Baptist that is used of Jesus instead of Maryam, and yet you have to somehow make it mean something else, or that Jesus will die sometime in the future. He's going to come back and then he'll get to die then, as if that's actually, you know, makes some kind of sense.
Yeah.
There seems to be a conflict in the text of the Quran at this point, and given the fact that there is no hadith interpretation of Surah 4:1-7, that again makes us wonder how it got here in this form. Could it have been misunderstood in transmission? Could the one Qurra who remembered it have misremembered it? All these are interesting questions. So once again, 40 Arabic words written 625 years after the ministry of Jesus in a different culture, 765 miles from Jerusalem, half a millennium removed, no first-hand contact, in a completely different language. This is supposed to be the basis upon which I, as a Christian, abandon the consistent testimony of all of my sacred scriptures, the basis upon which I abandon the testimony of all of the relevant first century historical information. Now, I understand. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes. I understand where many of our Muslim friends go. I understand what the arguments are. In an amazing example of inconsistency, Muslims in modern times have allied themselves with the ancient polytheists, those who denied there was a creator God, called the Gnostics. Proving the old axiom, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, Muslim apologists are quick to embrace the assertions of the Gnostics, despite the fact that Gnosticism is clearly not consistent with the views of Jesus that even they as Muslims hold. When you start going to the early Gnostic sources that denied the crucifixion, you need to realize you're going to polytheists who believe that the creator of this world was evil. That means, from their perspective, You as Muslims, they believe Allah is an evil God. Isn't that enough in and of itself to disqualify them? The reason they denied the crucifixion of Jesus was real simple, because they disagreed with you again. They didn't believe Jesus had a physical body. They did not believe that he was born as a man, even of the Virgin Mary. They did not believe that he had a physical body because they believed all physical bodies are evil. And so Jesus only seemed to have a physical body. Well, if you only seem to have a physical body, if all you are is a spiritual being, it's really hard to crucify a spiritual being. You can try real hard if you want, but it just doesn't do you any good. And so you see, they had theological and philosophical reasons for denying the crucifixion, not historical. None of them go back to the first century. But even when they do begin to appear, you need to understand the reason they denied the crucifixion was theological in orientation. And it's based upon a theological belief that Muslims absolutely reject. Yeah. And yet on this one instance, they will join hands with the worst examples of people who are kafirs, who practiced the grossest form of shirk. They were polytheists. And yet we find Muslims joining hands with them and arguing that somehow this is where the true historical information is to be found, rather than the monotheistic Jewish followers of Jesus who gave us a united testimony as to the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Well, Dr. White, thank you so much. I mean, this is very clear, and it's interesting, of course, you know, the obvious is that the Bible definitely, all four Gospels teach the crucifixion. I mean, I don't know that there's any, maybe just a couple of the very shortest epistles that don't explicitly mention something about the crucifixion. You know, the Bible definitely teaches it. Christians have always believed it. It is the core of our faith that Jesus, who was, just as we had Ignatius, that was wonderful. I mean, the deity of Christ affirmed, the death, the crucifixion of Christ affirmed, the burial and resurrection affirmed, in that one citation
exactly.
In 107 A.D. And yet you made the case even really from Islam, that if you go to the Quran, if you go to the teachings, the one passage, I really appreciate that, and I hadn't really noticed that before, but there's only one ayah, one verse.
40 Arabic words.
In the entire Quran, and even that is ambiguous.
It's very ambiguous.
And then, as you pointed out, sort of 1933, it seems that Jesus, peace be upon me, the day that I was born, the day that I die, and the day that you'll raise me up again, or the day that I'm raised up again.
And they have to put that off into some future eschatological manifestation when the exact same words are used of John the Baptist in not someplace else in the Quran, but in the same surah within 15 verses.
Amazing. Amazing. And
18
you know,
verses. Let me get the exact number right.
And Surah 355, you know, behold, Allah said, O Jesus, now here's Ibn Musaddis. Now Musaddis in Arabic, in Iraqi Arabic, it means pistol. But Ibn Tafka, Ibn Bantakiya, the son of a gun. Every time I read Yusuf Ali in these places, I just shake my head, me being an old southerner, you know, not knowing that much. But I know enough to say, that son of a gun, he did it again. And here's the translation, you know, we got in the English, Yusuf Ali, Surah 3, verse 55. Behold, Allah said, O Jesus, I will take thee. And raise thee to myself. Now, in the Arabic, I will cause thee to die. Yeah. Ani mutawafika. Mutawafika. Now, to an Arabic speaker, the clear meaning of this, I'm going to cause you to die. Well, what's that? Well, we believe that while it was the Jews and the Romans, from the human perspective, that crucified our Lord, the Apostle Peter, does he not say in Acts, that by the God's foreordained plan, this was to take place. And so, in a sense, if you translate that correctly, we would agree with that statement, that God the Father did cause his Son, allow his Son to be killed. And then he did raise him